I don't even have time to wipe.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Stand by.
So I just recently made a video talking about my AR-15 clone rifles, and people seem to like that. So I'm going to make a video detailing my AK collection. Hopefully you guys will enjoy taking a look at some of the AKs that I have. It's not the biggest collection ever, but I've got some cool guns in there, so hopefully you'll enjoy seeing them. First up is the Galil ARM. This is a kit build. I got the kit from Apex Gun Parts, good old Apex. If you're into guns at all, you should definitely check out Apex. They're the bomb. They've got all kinds of really cool surplus stuff, but they had these ARM parts kits for a long time. Unfortunately, I think they've kind of dried up at this point, but you can still find them out there. But I had some custom wood made from a guy on Instagram, and I got a Tortort custom laser engraved IDF receiver, and I had it Cerakoted to match the rest of the kit. Kit was built by a guy by the name of Jeff Covino out in Arizona. He owns a shop called Arizona Armory, and he built this for me, and it runs like a top. It's super lightweight. That's a joke for all you folks out there. The ARM rifles are super heavy. They just are, but they don't recoil all that much, luckily. And this is, I get more questions about this than the actual rifle. This is an optics rail that is set up for this primary arms red dot, but it's a kind of a custom fab unit made by a shop in South Africa. So it's not like a commercial product. That's how I mount my optic on there. I got kind of lucky with a hookup. I had to modify the bottom of it to actually accept the bipod legs. They wouldn't lock in before, but now they do lock in. And yeah, it's not a pre-band, but it looks pretty good. Oh, and it's got an ALG trigger in there, which makes this really nice to shoot. So it's not a pre-band, but it looks, in my opinion, even better than a pre-band because it's got IDF marks on there and it's got the lightning cuts in the receiver. So that's a really cool part of my collection that I shoot. It's in 223. I shoot it quite a bit, and I've got a whole butt ton of these magazines for it. These are some stills of me shooting my ARM at a run and gun match, and it's probably the coolest I've ever looked in my life. Up next we have my Arsenal SLR 104 FR folding stock Arsenal AK-74 copy in Bulgaria. And I've had this gun for a long time. I bought it back when they were actually coming into the country. And it's got thousands of rounds through it, and it's one of those guns in my collection that I'll never get rid of it. I've suppressed it. Shoots great suppressed, actually. It's got an adjustable gas piston in there. Optics rail. I put the triangle stock on it. I have the original stock, which is this plum polymer, which I actually like a little bit better, but I got a triangle stock for it because why the hell not? And it's got a Izzy True Black magazine. You can see the stamp there. And it's not a plum mag, it's actually black. But yeah, this is one of my favorite rifles, period. It doesn't even have an optic on it. I had an Ultimac on it for a long time, but it's one of my favorite AKs and one of my favorite guns in my collection. Of course, it has the ALG in it as well, and she runs like a raped ape. This clip is from AK Masters in 2021, and didn't have the piston in there at that point, and I also had a scope on it. Up next is my Galil ACE in 5.56. It's, I guess you might call it a micro Galil. It's not really a micro Galil, but it's a Galil ACE that accepts rock and lock magazines, and it actually has, it's hot right now. Oh no, danger check it. It's got rock and lock traditional Galil magazines, which I have kind of a stockpile of. And this particular magazine is a South African polymer magazine from Frontier Armory. They have a lot of cool stuff, including Galil and FAL stuff and SIG 55X stuff. But maybe one day I'll add more Galil ACEs to the collection, but this is just something that I had to get because it takes the rock and lock mags. It's kind of a limited special edition. I'd like to get a 5.45 ACE one day, but right now this is the only Galil ACE that I have, and runs really well. I like it. I like it quite a bit. Just like the ARM, it's really lightweight for what it is. And it's super quiet when you suppress it. It's not. You know, I think it has an 8-inch barrel, just like a crank, so it's not really ever going to be quiet. But it makes it a little better when you suppress it. It's set up for an OSS suppressor right now, but you can put any. It's half by 28 threads on there. Super smooth action. I had to modify the trigger a little bit to make it better because of it has a bolt hold open mechanism, which is what this is, and because of that it's a little bit sketchy to put a new trigger in there, or to put a different trigger in there. You can do it, but it will require some modification to your trigger. Won't accept just any old trigger. And I've heard people also, they have to remove the bolt hold open entirely to get whatever trigger they want. So it's not just like a plug and play thing. It's kind of its own thing. And you can buy ALGs that are like set up for the 5.56 Galil rifles, but this trigger, if you look at it, it's actually a Galil ARM trigger. I forgot what I did. This, of course, is the ARM, and it came with its own trigger in the parts kit. But I wanted to put an ALG trigger in it, so I did. But I still had the original Galil trigger. So I put the original Galil trigger in the Galil ACE, and it works fine now. And it's a much better trigger than the Galil ACE trigger. Okay, so this is a good old Maadi and I really like this rifle. Unfortunately, my first story time. Unfortunately, my first AK that I ever bought was an inner ordnance AK, which I know now is one of the worst AKs that you can possibly buy. They pretty much do everything wrong when they build their AKs, and mine worked for a while, but it started to have issues, and I noticed that the trigger pins, these pins here, were starting to egg out over time, and that's because they didn't heat treat the receiver properly. But they do all kinds of really naughty, bad things when they build their AKs. I won't shit talk them too much, but don't buy inner ordnance AKs. They're garbage. There's a lot of garbage out there on the market, unfortunately, but when I saw this gun, I worked at a gun store at the time, I had to buy it. And it's a Maadi that's imported by Century Arms, and it had the thumbhole stock on there and some nasty furniture, but it accepts normal AK furniture. I've got some, I believe this is AK-74 furniture on there, Russian surplus furniture, and it's got a fat Polish Bakelite grip, and it's got a trigger. The trigger's original. For some reason it wouldn't work with an ALG, so I just did a trigger job on this, and it's got a very nice trigger now. I also bead blasted the bolt carrier and the trigger, and this thing had about 1,000 rounds through it before I bought it. And interestingly, the original buyer, bought it in like Chino, California or something for like $200 in like 1995 or something like that. So a lot has changed since then. I'm not sure how it ended up where I live on the East Coast, but it is one of my favorite AKs. I slapped a adjustable gas piston in there, and you can see some of the carbon on there. That's it's been shot quite a bit. I probably got 4,000 or 5,000 rounds on this guy myself, and it probably had 1,000 rounds on it before. It's got an Ultimac on there. It's got a Trijicon MRO, which I'm actually not really a fan of the MROs because they have a little bit of magnification that's not useful in any way, but it is enough to be distracting. So I just put it on this gun, and those of you AK guys out there know that you can't just put any cheapo depot optic on an Ultimac because it will cook it. It'll cook the electronics. So the MRO has been kind of a perfect choice for this gun because it's not a cheap optic, but I'm not going to put it on a gun that I shoot all the time because it's not my favorite optic. But it works for this gun. It's got a little muzzle brake on there. I think Midwest Industries. Yep, Midwest Industries muzzle brake. And that's pretty much it. It's got the Russian waffle magazine just for a flex. But man, buttery smooth action, and I can't complain. It's imported by Century Arms, but it's made by quite obviously made by, I don't know if you can read that, by Miser, however the hell you say that, in Egypt, which there's a lot of rumors about Maadis and who exactly made them. I think they're supposedly made with help from Russians. They're supposed to be pretty close to AKM pattern rifles. So I love my Maadi. I'll never part with it. It's a little crusty, but you can see it's got some like weird finish wear that on the barrel. It had like this god-awful paint on the bolt carrier that was chipping off. So like I said, I bead blasted it, and For functional rifles, this is a very, very functional rifle, and it's one of my favorite 7.62 rifles. It's really lightweight, even with the Ultimac on there, and just really makes a lot of sense. And boy, does it feel good to shoot with that adjustable gas piston in there. It's just got a really slow cyclic rate, and it just poops the shell casings out very gently. So this is probably my favorite AK in my collection. This is my SVD Dragunov, and I absolutely love this rifle. It's one of the most accurate... What? No, it's a Dragunov. It's an SVD. No, I know the guy who sold it to me said that it was an SVD. Bro, I paid like... Be right back. So apparently this is not an SVD. Oh, I'm never going to financially recover from this. Guys, just kidding. I know this isn't an SVD and I didn't overpay for it. Actually, I got a really good deal on it. For those of you wondering what that was all about, maybe do a little more research. But this is obviously a PSL. Pumpkin Spice Latte. I've got the bitch pad on there because it's really long. It just hit my safe. It's got the bitch pad on there because I don't like how short the stock is. And the recoil pad just helps me get a little bit more length to pull. I mean, you can tell how short it is, and it's even about an inch shorter. So I don't know why they made the stock so short. Ask the Romanians, but this is my PSL, and Henry over at 9 Hole Reviews did a good kind of synopsis on the PSL and why it sort of sucks. I will do my own video on the PSL and why it may or may not suck, but it's leaves a lot to be desired. It's kind of a strange... They made a lot of strange choices when designing this rifle, but it is a vibe. It is totally passes the vibe. It totally passes the vibe check, and it's super long, and it looks cool as hell. And to your friends who are not AK people, you can tell them that you have an SVD Dragunov, and they'll believe you. I put a PSO 8 power, fixed 8 power scope on here. And that's twice as good as the 4 power Dragunov's copy scope that they sent this rifle with. These scopes are pretty affordable. You can find them. This, I believe, was made in Belarus, but I wanted a scope that you could actually like dial a meaningful value instead of just having like basically a BDC dialing system. The PSO original PSOP scopes are super weird, and I can do a video on those, but I wanted a scope that you could actually like make elevation adjustments that weren't random distances. So yeah, it's also has an off bore. It's not in center line with the bore. I don't know if you can see that, but that kind of complicates your dialing a little bit. You have to add in some other windage corrections when you're dialing. So that kind of sucks. There's nothing great about the the PSL. Almost said SVD a second time there, but There's nothing really great about the PSL except that you can make pumpkin spice latte jokes, and it looks really cool. I put the K&S piston in there, and even with the K&S piston, it kind of kicks a little bit harder than it should. But it's a cool rifle. I want to do some more shooting with it, and maybe I'll have better results than Henry, but it's definitely a cool looking rifle. It's one of those rifles that you put up on your wall and hope that if the world ends, you end up with a better rifle. Poor PSL. I'm sorry. I'm shitting on you so much, PSL. I do love you, but it does work, I guess. It works pretty well, and it's in a big caliber, so it's got that going for it. But other than that, it's kind of just a flex. Nowadays, they're ridiculously expensive. They used to be not so expensive. I paid more than I wanted to, but compared to today's prices, it was reasonable. So that's my PSL.
Colonel, I'm trying to sneak around, but I'm dummy thick, and the clap of my ass cheeks keeps alerting the guards.